Hello, everybody, and welcome back to TMG Entertainment After Dark. We are back once again for another week talking about all the latest in the movie world. My name is Aaron Knoll. Thank you guys for joining us here tonight as we'll be kind of getting into, like I said, breaking down all the latest in the movie world. And as the title and that, something thumbnail says, it's been a Marvel week. They have dominated everything once again. They dominate our hearts, our souls, our television screens, and probably the limited amount of theatrical experiences some of you will have later this year. So let's go ahead and get into the panel. I'm excited. We got a debutant. We have some returning panelists after a bit, but where would we be without good old Mr. Matt Beer? How's it going, man?
It's going all right. You're welcome for the thumbnail. I thought we should honor both Marvel Studios this week as well as Brie Larson, everybody's favorite actress in Hollywood. But I'm doing pretty good.
Absolutely glad to have you. Moving over next, he is the head of our sister-related TM Geek. He is Mr. Kevin Poss returning to the show. How's it going, man?
Thorin Oakenshield. Oh, this is not a...
Yeah, not this time, Kevin.
Sorry, okay. All right.
I don't write matches. That's why you
No,
don't play.
but I'm really happy to be back on After Dark. I've taken a little bit of a hiatus, but happy to be back and happy to be talking movie news. This is interesting. This will be fun.
Absolutely. Joining us on the panel, Mr. Chris Diaz.
Hey, everybody. Doing pretty good. Had a good week. Catch up and stuff. Some great movie. Back movie year so far. But other than that, not too much. I've been playing Resident Evil 7, and when I heard we were talking about Marvel, I wanted to be on.
Absolutely. And going up last, Kevin, this is a horrible way to ask, but has it aired yet, if you understand what I'm asking?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so fresh off his TM Geek debut, coming off with a very solid win in a three-way match, we are joined on his After Dark debut by Mr. Sean Hunter. Welcome, man. How's it going?
I'm excited to be here and talk with you lovely gentlemen about movies and geekdom. This is going to be great.
Absolutely, guys. We'll go ahead and get into it. And yeah, right away, like I said, Marvel absolutely dominated everything. But before they did that, they decided to give us just a little teaser of what is to come while celebrating cinema. Let's go ahead and learn about it. This week, Marvel, who's already knocked 2021 out of the park with 2 Disney Plus shows and 4 more to come this year, reminded us that they also make theatrical releases with a special video celebrating the cinema. It begins with shots of the previous films backed by Stan Lee narration before moving to first-hand audience reaction to the portal sequence from Avengers Endgame. Following this, they took the time to give us looks at some of their upcoming movies and revealed quite a bit of information. After giving us some small pieces of new footage from Black Widow and Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings, we finally got our first look at recent Oscar winner Chloe Zhao's Eternals. The look was brief, but we got to see almost every major cast member, including close-up looks at leads Gemma Chan, Angelina Jolie, and Richard Madden as Cersei, Thena, and Icaris, respectively. We also got information on other films that were up and coming in the MCU. Black Panther 2, Captain Marvel 2, and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 were given official titles in Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, The Marvels, and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Not all of them are going to be super original. We also got official dates for 3 of those films. The Marvels will release on November 11th, 2022. Ant-Man and the Wasp will release on February 17th, 2023, and Guardians Volume 3 will release on May 5th, 2023, which officially confirms that the film will be set after the previously announced holiday special, which will air in December of 2022. Finally, for this video, we also got confirmation that John Watts' Fantastic Four reboot will be the final project of Phase 4, though we learned no proper information about it. As no one will ever totally be satisfied, while most fans were happy with the announcement trailer, we were left with some questions after this event-sized trailers. Let's head back to the panel to discuss some of these. Yeah, so before I go ahead and bring up some kind of questions people had about it, which I circulated the internet looking for We'll go ahead and get into the positives. Sean, it's your first episode, so I'll go to you first. What about this kind of mega teaser, funny enough, almost a Comic-Con style trailer, stood out to you the most?
I think the thing that stood out to me the most is Black Panther 2 getting its official title and it being an amazingly cool, awesome title, Wakanda Forever. That title just gets me psyched to get back into theaters and see that film. So that's, I think, one of the biggest takeaways from the trailer for me is just that how cool that is.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think, especially because, now we know, obviously, it's also in a way going to be kind of a tribute film. I think it's a really interesting title to go with. And you're right. I think it's very emblematic of what we're going to get with this film. Chris, I'll go to you next. What about this teaser stood out to you?
I have to give credit first. I thought the teaser was really beautiful in the beginning, with all the shots for the previous Marvel movie, their Stanley narration, and then the audience reaction and game was on a beautiful way to lead it. Everything got me excited, really excited about Black Panther 2. I like the internal footage they showed briefly, especially after seeing on Atlanta. I was really a big fan of it debut. Yeah. So yeah, like everything getting me excited. Like questioning some thoughts that they haven't shown yet, but then we get a further down line for something else that coming out this year. And I find it interesting they say with Black Widow, it came made release date, but that's also Disney Plus, so that will be reflecting the show. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Beer, I'll go to you next. What about this kind of stood out to you?
The Eternals. That was the one that really stood out to me. We got footage, which kind of surprised we didn't get a trailer like right after the Oscars because, of Chloe Zhao winning Best Director. But that was the one that really stuck out to me, of course, getting a official title for Black Panther. I think since we're not going to get, T'Challa anymore, I think Wakanda Forever is a perfect title for the movie. And then really besides that, it's just official announcements as far as release dates for some of the movies. I mean, I think we all expected Guardians of the Galaxy 3 to be Volume 3. Just kind of continuing what Volume 2 was titled and whatnot, and just, the overall movies anyway.
I will say, though, I did see, obviously, because the fans love speculating things, when that was announced, I saw like a comment thread that was talking about some of the speculative titles people thought they'd go with if they'd gone with something different. Mm-hmm. And I am amazed at how many different titles you can come up with for one film. Right. I mean, I saw Guardians of the Galaxy Greatest Hits. I saw Guardians of the, what was another one? Someone jokingly said, "Now that's what I call the Guardians of the Galaxy." Nice. I'll try and think of some other ones if I can remember them. But yeah, and that's why I jokingly mentioned, look, some are just expected. They're not all that creative, right? We all assume the title would be Volume 3. It's Volume 3. That doesn't mean it's not tried and true, but it's, just, hey, now we know. Kevin, I'll go to you. What about this kind of big teaser stood out to you?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing that stood out to me was just the fact that it was labeled, Marvel Studios celebrates the movies. It's kind of reinvigorating that that love for and passion for movies that Marvel has always had, and kind of getting people prepared for Phase 4. But the one that sticks out to me is the use of the stories of Monica Rambeau and Kamala Khan, following their introduction in WandaVision and Miss Marvel, and obviously in Marvels and the Marvels. Yeah. So that's the one that sticks out to me the most. But I think they're all awesome. I think Wakanda Forever is going to be great. I'm interested to see if there's any kind of, maybe some footage from that Chad maybe had shot that will be in there, kind of like where he went back and saw T'Chaka. Maybe he will be in there in that kind of light, and I think that could really be impactful. But it's always cool seeing this kind of stuff as it forms. And Feige has come out and said that the COVID thing has really not done a lot of reshuffling to their plans. So seems like they're sticking to what they had planned. So I'm excited to see where it goes.
I think truly, like, obviously, and we've had the reports come out, like WandaVision got partially affected by COVID with the filming of their finale and the stuff they had to cut. Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and again, I don't think this was ever actually confirmed, but there was a very widespread rumor that there was a whole plot line they had to cut because it discussed a global health pandemic. But I think most likely we are very truly past films being affected by it, because Black Widow was already finished filming well before any of this started, and anything that's coming out now is either something that was able to take a clean break, like a 50-50 break. Like, I believe Shang-Chi had like half of its movie done, and then they came back from COVID to finish the rest. Or it's been filmed throughout the entirety of COVID, like a lot of the upcoming series have been. Other than that, I think the only thing that was really affected by COVID production was What If, but we've already seen a number of animated films that had to go through production during COVID that have come out okay. And considering they're treating everything like it's a cinematic production, not a television show, I'm sure they got the same treatment that a lot of other Disney animation properties have gotten in terms of the aid to help produce from home. So I do hope and think we've seen the last of it. I'll go ahead and bring up this kind of list I put together, and this was just a general thing from multiple articles of things people kind of wondered why we didn't get, or will we get something on this in the future. So the first thing is, obviously, we got, and as I mentioned, we did get the tease that Fantastic Four, as of the moment, will be the closing film of Phase 4. But we got no release date, no title, nothing around it, just the symbol, and it's here. People were wondering, where does Blade fall into all of this? Because we actually learned this week, separate from this trailer, that Blade's script should be done by December and that they'll begin filming next year in July. So we're wondering, where does Blade fall into all of this? Do they really think they'll not be done with post by December of 2023 to give it a date? Or are they just not putting it there to be safe? Or is it maybe even Phase 5? Like, we'll have come to a natural close of phase by then and they'll put it into the next phase. The next thing that people were commenting on was the absence of all things mutant related. Specifically Deadpool 3, because there has been a long-standing rumor that this will be an MCU film. Whatever that means, we're not still sure. I'm of the belief that MCU film for Deadpool means they'll get to crack a couple of MCU jokes and stick another helicarrier in the background, but I don't think it'll actually affect the MCU, but we don't know really what that means. And considering there has been a rumor that that film will be ready for release by 2023, again, it's worth noting that it wasn't brought up. And the other thing is Avengers, right? We obviously had 2 Avengers films back to back, so that begs the question, is Phase 4 going to be the first Avenger-less phase? Because we're giving all these characters time to get their projects in before going back to that well? Or is there just something we haven't heard be announced yet? So I'll go ahead and kind of just chuck it out there. Whoever wants to jump in first, do any of those stand out to you as things we may learn soon or things we should have learned now?
I will say, like with the mutant thing,
I'll go to you next, Jim.
We got to remember Kevin Feige did say that there was a 5-year plan that he's already had planned, and this was prior to the Fox purchase. So I'm sure if we're going to get X-Men, it's probably going to be, Phase 5. I'm thinking 2025, maybe 2026 is when we would expect it. And I think as far as the Avengers thing, the Fantastic Four is going to be the substitute for the Avengers for this phase. I don't think we're going to get any Avengers until Phase 5 because, we're kind of getting back into post-Endgame. Characters are taking up new mantles, like with Falcon taking over Captain America. And then just everybody kind of, I think they don't want to go too big right away because we did just get out of something that was really big for that world. So I think they're going to focus more on those smaller stories. Spider-Man is going to be more of the more, I guess, Endgame like as far as just how big the movie's going to be with the events happening in it. But besides that, I think, at least for this phase, everything is going to be, outside of Eternals, obviously, everything's going to be more smaller, almost like Ant-Man, where Ant-Man's not like this big, we got to save the world, more like we got to save the city is what I think they're going to focus on for right now.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Sean, I'll go to you next because you were ready to jump in there.
Yeah, I think in terms of X-Men, New Mutants came out last year, Dark Phoenix came out the year before that, so I think they just want, they already had their 5-year plan in place, but they just want to have the next evolution of the X-Men so far away from those past movies, because those movies, the first X-Men came out in 2001 or something like that, so it's
2000.
Yeah, so 2000. Those are so ingrained in our minds. We just need time to kind of forget that Hugh Jackman is Wolverine somehow.
Yeah.
I think, and also for Blade, I think Kevin Feige said Blade was going to be in Phase 5 from the get-go. That I think it was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I think there are going to be a lot of grounded street level kind of superheroes, but we're also getting stories like Thor and Doctor Strange, and even Ant-Man's dealing with Quantumania and whatnot. So it's
Kang the Conqueror.
So we're gonna see a lot of big, crazy multiversal kind of stuff in a lot of these films. So it'll be a really cool phase with all that, and then with Shang-Chi, just kind of street level character and doing all this stuff. So yeah, pretty excited.
Yeah, it's these weird projects where it's they all feel so big in scale, but yet they all seem so personally focused on the characters that it's on, and as we'll get to, obviously we know Jamie Foxx is in the film. We know that Alfred Molina's in the film, and we'll get to it in just a few minutes, but we obviously know one of the stars is vehemently saying he is not in the film. So we don't really know what is happening with that movie. But if it is, and as I've said, it's part of this multiverse trilogy, that's a big story to cover. But also we know it has to focus on some sort of personal focus because of the cliffhanger at the end of Far From Home, and Eternals. Eternals is a film that is very wide in terms of breadth, and they even say it's something along the lines in the clip where they're everything since the beginning we've affected, right? There's some line to that effect in it. But it also looks like a film that's just very much personally focused on its characters, And as somebody who I literally earlier today got to watch Nomadland for the first time, I can see it. I can see it because that's a film that is so about its characters. I understand kind of why she may have ended up with this project. Because at least from what we're getting, it looks like it's small scale story with these big world characters. Chris, I see you kind of inching in the bottom. I'll go to you next, and then I'll go to Kevin last before we move on. Go ahead, Chris.
I also find it interesting, we didn't mention it, but they didn't say anything about Captain America 4 that news came out a while ago.
Right, yeah.
Stop putting for Phase 5. I think Blade being Phase 5 is good. Give it time. Because as someone who just wanted Blade movie for the first time with the last one, I probably hope this one is better than that. But yeah, I think it did me interesting. Spider-Man, I wrote, interesting when we do eventually get this trailer, because this film came out in December of this year, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, oh, sorry, finish, please.
And we started this trailer for movie December, but got past that straight last week. So, when eventually where we get the trailer for Spider-Man, or did they keep it a secret, and we probably would talk about headline too, about who is who in the movie. Right.
Yeah, and so that is one of the things. I didn't include that as a part of the list because I certainly did see a number of people question as to why we haven't gotten anything, why we didn't get footage from Spider-Man No Way Home. But the simple answer to that is, as part of the terms of their contract, Sony actually controls all marketing. So obviously Kevin Feige is like the head producer of the film, can input and say, I want to do it here and here. But if Sony wants to, they have the power to reject it and say no. So for all we know, maybe Kevin did want to put something on here, but considering this is technically a Disney released marketing property, they probably just didn't want their footage put on there. That'll be something that'll come separate. And that's just one of the weird oddities you get when you have a film like this that's essentially co-owned by two completely separated studios with two different goals. Kevin, I'll go to you last before we go ahead and move on.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really add anything that everybody's already said other than what has already been said, but it just seems like this phase is coming at the perfect time for them. As far as the Disney Plus series, you know, they're all very successful, obviously, and there are more in the works. It seems like they're going to be having some fun with the films, like Quantum Mania, Multiverse of Madness, Wakanda Forever, and then it's setting up kind of like with, you know, there may not be an Avengers film in this phase, but this will definitely be setting up for the new Avengers for the next phase and phases to be in the future. So. You know, that's something that I'm excited to see, and then see where it goes from there. So, yeah, it's interesting, and I'm interested to see how many of these Disney Plus shows they keep going with, because those have really caught my eye. Especially, I mean, I'm not trying to steer it in the different direction, but Star Wars and Marvel, and everybody's doing that now. So it's basically like a 6-hour long movie. So it's like, you know, wherever you can get the stuff in, do it. So yeah, I think they have a successful plan, and this is, you know, COVID hasn't really put the strain on them as much as I feel like it has other movie entities. So I think they still have a good plan, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. So before I move on to the next topic, which we're not stepping too far away, it's Marvel again, but I'll go ahead and go around just kind of once to get an idea. Obviously, I think everybody mentioned Black Panther, so clearly that's a commonality that everyone is interested and excited for, but I'll go around starting with Kevin, just kind of, you can throw it out there. What property in Phase 4, after now seeing this trailer and learning a little more about some of these films, between the shows and the films, what property excites you most?
Honestly, I think I'm interested in the Fantastic Four. We've seen it done pretty well. We've seen it done pretty shittily. So I really want to see, you know, how they're going to do it in the MCU. I think it can be done very well. It's written well. So yeah, I'm excited to see, you know, who they cast and who directs it, and which direction they take with the story.
Well, it is John Watts who directed the Spider-Man film.
Well, there you go. So yeah, I'm just interested to see which storyline they take, and just see where it goes. Yeah, Fantastic Four.
Sean.
It's a very tough and hard question, because the next Spider-Man film, we could see 3 Spider-Men in it. Black Panther, I'm just so interested to see what they're going to do in that film, how they're going to pay tribute, and who and if someone will become the new Black Panther. Doctor Strange and the multiverse, just that title alone is like, oh my god. And just like the last Thor movie, Ragnarok, was so fantastic. This new one, I'm sure it's going to be just as amazing or better. But I think I'm going to pick Fantastic Four too, just because there's been so many bad ones. In fact, Fantastic Four, like Marvel's first family, it's like, I love those characters, and I want to see that story done right, and I want to see it in the MCU. So I think that's the one I'm most excited for. But I think I can't see Marvel keeping the Fantastic Four as a white family. I totally think they're going to race swap them and make them either black or Latino. I just can't see them doing that, have another like group of white superheroes. So if they don't do that, it'll be even more interesting. So yeah, I'm going to say Fantastic Four.
Chris.
You know what? I'm looking forward to Fantastic Four by everybody else. I'm kind of looking forward to that because I love what he did late with the first Spider-Man and him coming to do Doctor Strange. That made me Doctor Strange Wanda thing. I think that, and in fact, I love that Raimi director. We thought his last movie was the biggest fan of. But I like what he's doing. I think him being in the MCU, especially with Doctor Strange creating it is originally, it's perfect for him. I can't wait to see how it connects to WandaVision, just everything that has been going on now. So yeah.
Yeah.
And so Love and Thunder. I mean, I love Taika Waititi, and I can't wait to see Russell Crowe crazy cameo and Deuce now. But I'm wondering how they did Greek mythology now into the story in red.
And Matt.
I think you know my answer, Aaron. I think you know my answer. It is Spider-Man. Spider-Man 3. Look.
No. That mess happened a few years ago.
We're getting No Way Home, the third Spider-Man, or should I call it Spider-Man 4 because Tobey will be back and so will Garfield. Look, if you're bringing Jamie Foxx and Alfred Molina into this movie, you're bringing Tobey and Andrew into this movie. That's what you're doing. Unless you're using Jamie Foxx and Alfred Molina as another boner joke, you're bringing in the other Spider-Man. That's what you're doing. I don't know. Maybe this is just set up for the Boner family. You know, you have the Quicksilver, Alfred Molina. You have Jamie Foxx. Just a couple of boners living together. But no, it's Spider-Man. Absolutely, it's the multiverse. I'm very excited to see how they handle this. I think John Watts is a capable enough director to where he can do a good job with this movie. Kevin Feige has proven time and time again when we have these big event type movies that for the most part he knocks out of the park besides Age of Ultron. But Civil War, Endgame, Infinity War,
really?
The first Avengers. That's the one. Those 4 movies alone have shown that Kevin Feige can really, he knows how to balance the characters. Like he can, because look, let's admit it. Marvel directs the movies, not the directors per se. The directors will add their flavor in, but they're the ones controlling every beat. Kevin Feige has proven himself to be trusted when it comes to these big events movies. It was the Eternals for a little bit, but once you got Jamie Foxx announced in it and Alfred Molina and all of them, it's Spider-Man.
I want to say one last thing.
Good.
Fantastic Four, and that would be Silver Surfer, Galactus, and Doctor Doom. Just, yeah.
And I'm gonna go with actually, weirdly enough, I think the one I might be most interested in is Thor: Love and Thunder. So and I've said this on the show before. I'm nowhere near as big a fan of Ragnarok as most people are.
Same.
I actually thought one of the biggest issues with that film is Taika did a horrible job of balancing the humor and the drama.
Thank you,
but
Aaron.
I think that's a lesson he learned with Jojo Rabbit. I think he had to fall a little bit with Ragnarok to learn for Jojo Rabbit, and seeing that film makes me really hope that he can pull it off with Love and Thunder, because when it was funny, and when it was dramatic, I did think at times he handled it well. I just thought the mix was weirdly off at points, whereas I think he really nailed that tone with Jojo Rabbit, and that makes me excited to see him bring that flair back to Love and Thunder. In addition to all the great casting, I mean, Christian Bale and Russell Crowe in a Marvel film, that's it right there. But with that said, we're not done with Marvel, far from it. Over the last week, and technically one of these stories was from last week, but we've got some fun, interesting stories, so let's get into them. Kevin Feige revealed this week that Benedict Cumberbatch's Doctor Strange was almost in WandaVision's finale. When talking with Rolling Stone, Feige revealed that the series was originally set to end with Doctor Strange showing up to begin to aid Wanda in moving on from the Westview incident and learning about her new powers. In fact, it was so official that they'd even entered discussions with Cumberbatch to activate one of his contract appearances and bring him onto set to film. However, just before going to set, the decision was made by Feige, director Matt Shakman, and showrunner Jock Schaefer to cut Strange out of the show due to the fact that they wanted to keep the focus on the finale for Wanda's emotional journey and not to make it feel like the end of the show was just there to directly set up a future film. They later did insert a setup for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness in the way of taking a clip from the film and inserting it as a post-credit scene. Tom Hiddleston, as a part of a promo video this week, confirmed that Loki will break ground for Disney Plus and begin airing on Wednesdays instead of the normal Friday, with the first episode being bumped up 2 days now to June 9th instead of June 11th. Outside of the cool marketing video, no official reason has been given by Disney for the move, but sources say that the decision was made as in order to not potentially cannibalize audiences. Disney at that point will have 2 of its quote-unquote A-list series airing, including Star Wars The Bad Batch and the second season of High School Musical, the series. No, that's not a joke by me. They actually consider it an A-list show. And both shows, which will have 16 and 12 episodes respectively, begin airing in May and will be continuing during and past Loki's run. They feel it would be best, in case there is crossover in audiences, to have one of them air on a different day, and so Loki will begin airing on Wednesdays. This week, while being interviewed by Cinema Blend, director Cary Scoveland was asked for her thoughts on the announcement of Captain America 4 and the rumors around it. She stated that while she was excited to hear the announcement, as apparently no one except for showrunner Malcolm Spellman was privy to any information around it, including Anthony Mackie, who confirmed that he found out the same time as everyone else. Scoveland praised Spellman as well as the work of the actors for the show. She then went on to shoot down the idea that this rumored film could be another film starring Steve Rogers, believing that Marvel wouldn't have taken the steps to indoctrinate Mackie into the role as Cap, only to backtrack with another character. She was then finally asked about her involvement in the film, in which she revealed that she hadn't yet spoken with Kevin Feige about it, but that if she were offered that job or even a job with Marvel, she would accept it in a heartbeat. Similarly, actor Wyatt Russell was asked by Vanity Fair if he was officially involved in Captain America 4. Russell responded by confirming that he had also not heard anything from the studio, and went on to even reveal that Marvel had actually not yet held talks with him about where his next appearance would come. When asked about how he felt about that, Russell said that he was quite honestly perfectly fine. While he would love to return, and he did acknowledge that there was an obvious setup, he felt that his work on The Falcon and the Winter Soldier was a satisfying and well done enough arc that if he never got the call back, he was just glad he got the chance. In what is the latest set of Thor casting rumors, Christian Bale, Russell Crowe, and Taika Waititi were seen sitting at lunch with Sacha Baron Cohen, Isla Fisher, and Rita Ora in what is noted as deep discussion. And while this may seem absolutely fucking ridiculous, Russell Crowe was originally pictured with Chris Hemsworth before being announced as a part of the cast. So I don't know, maybe hanging out with your buddies in Australia is just how they cast for this film. Since the cast of the movie seems to be never-endingly growing, it is very possible that the 3 actors could sign on and join, even though the film has been in production for a number of months. And finally, while guesting on the Happy, Sad, Confused podcast with Josh Horowitz, Andrew Garfield was asked about the potential appearance in the upcoming Spider-Man No Way Home, to which Garfield laughed in Horowitz's face and said, quote, "There's nothing to spoil." He very quickly continued to shit all over the idea, stating that Garfield, in fact, had never received a call from Marvel to film anything for the movie. And while he certainly doesn't know if they may be doing something, so he can't speak to that, he certainly isn't involved himself, for the film has already finished filming and he says he was not there. The internet took it very well, stating that he explicitly did not say the words, "I'm not in the movie," and he said, "I did not receive a call," which meant that he must have gotten an email or a text or a DM on Instagram or a snap from Snapchat, because there's absolutely no way he couldn't be in this movie. Or so the internet says. Either way, we'll find out whether he was bluffing or not when Spider-Man No Way Home releases this December.
Okay.
So I feel like I'd be remiss, but to get into the Garfield stuff first.
Yeah, let's start with
that. Look, obviously, as with everything that actors say, like we all know the JJ mystery box incident with Cumberbatch, right? We all know these things can happen, right? Part of me genuinely believes him, because you can tell when people are bluffing, right? It's like with Cumberbatch with the Khan thing, or when Ewan would talk about Obi-Wan despite already being on contract, right? Like, it clearly wasn't convincing. And for those, I did agree. I was convinced by him. Like, he almost seemed, and I didn't mention it because I didn't want to bring all the details into the video, but he talked about like how he literally will go on Twitter and see rumor after rumor after rumor, and he just wants to tell people, calm down, don't get your hopes up, that type of a thing. I do genuinely believe him. And look, I know that I've made it fair on the show that I am against the whole multiverse idea, and I think if they don't execute this absolutely perfectly, it could go real fucking bad really quickly. But I believe him. I do believe him, you know, and people hang on to all of these things of, well, he technically said he didn't receive a phone call, so he could have gotten an email. They could have offered him the job through email but his stunt double was on set. Well, guess what? Stunt doubles need to fucking work too. It's not like that guy's only ever worked for Andrew Garfield. Right. He has experience with Spider-Man. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's just because of my mindset towards it, but I think this movie is heading for a WandaVision level disappointment potentially, because if he doesn't show up and the internet has so built up this thing that there's no way he's not in it, you are cruising for a bruising. Matt, go ahead and tell me why I'm wrong.
Okay, Aaron, here's the thing. You are wrong. For one, I do not buy that for a second, because you could just tell by his facial, just the things he's making with the face. It's not true. Because when, he was asked, so you're not in it. He's like, yeah, okay. Yeah, we totally believe you, Andrew Garfield, that you're not in a movie. Here's the thing.
People stutter. Have you seen my other takes?
Have you seen Andrew? Have you seen him talk?
Have you seen that Team Geek Man?
So, he might. Look, he said he didn't get a call, but here's the thing. That doesn't mean that he didn't get a call. He could be saying, I didn't get a call, but he actually got a call.
Obviously.
Just like I could tell my mom that, oh, no, I didn't get you anything for Mother's Day, but I got you something for Mother's Day. You know what I mean? It's like, look, Andrew Garfield is absolutely in the movie. He's, of course, going to lie. You have to lie if you're told to lie, okay? Because you know that Kevin Feige is not just bringing in Jamie Foxx as Electro, and Jamie Foxx shared a photo of all three Spider-Man looking up at the sky with Jamie Foxx's Electro in the sky, and then had to delete the post right after. All right, if Jamie Foxx is in the movie, and if Alfred Molina's in the movie, and Alfred Molina said they're doing the multiverse, and it's from the exact same time that he was in the water at the end of Spider-Man 2. You know that they're not just going to bring the villains in. They're bringing in the Spider-Man. It doesn't mean they're going to have big roles. They could just be a cameo, or they could have decent-sized roles. But also, if you look, the shirts that like the crew were wearing and whatnot, if you look at the back, has Spider-Man hanging on like one of the, mics or whatever. It's the Andrew Garfield costume. And also, Andrew Garfield's agent, we'll bring that up real quick, has never worked on a Marvel movie without Andrew Garfield being in the movie.
Right, but we don't know if his agent is involved.
You think he means a stuntman, not the agent?
Yeah, stuntman.
Okay.
Yeah, stuntman. Did I say agent?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm stupid.
Put it in the comments.
I'm big dumb. Anyway, his stunt double.
That's kind of how agents work, right? You represent the actor.
I'm stupid. Anyway, his stunt double has never done any of these Marvel things without Andrew Garfield.
Okay, so, and I see Chris, I'll go down to you in just a second. So, when I was reviewing this and putting all the stories together, I did come up with one incredibly dumb concept that I honestly don't think they'd ever do. But this is the only way that I think he could be truthful, but still not be in the film. Okay? Now, I'm going to go with a really weird reference here, but has anybody ever seen Power Rangers? Just any old season of Power Rangers. Okay.
Yeah.
There more than once on the show, when they have not had actors to set, the way they have gotten around it is by leaving the actor in the suit full time and just having an actor, whether it be that actor or even somebody who sounds like them at times, dub over the voice. What do you think the odds are that we see this Peter Parker show up in a suit and only be in a suit the whole time? And it's either maybe it is Garfield's voice, or maybe they legitimately didn't contact him and got someone who sounds like him to do the dubbing, and they dubbed his voice. I know it's a stretch, but it's a possibility, because that's the other thing is they were filming this during the pandemic, and I'm not 100% sure where they filmed it, but actor traveling was very difficult.
Yeah.
Could you have got Garfield from England over? Because he is in England right now. Could you have gotten him over easily? Would it have been worth it?
Well,
right?
there
Now,
were
again,
exceptions made where they could get the actors from one country to another.
Right, but like Holland was easy to get because Holland's been in America filming multiple projects.
No, I mean they've been able to travel to other countries, is what I'm saying. They were able to do that like right around when they were filming. Thank you, Jacob.
Like I said, I'll totally admit I'm the skeptic on this whole thing. Chris, I will go to you next, but I don't know, man. I believe him. I buy it because I think if it wasn't that he was involved, I don't think he would have been so vehement about it, because we have seen actors deny things, but they always do it in this like cool way of like, oh, I'm not involved in that, no comment. Whereas he was like, I'm not there. I did not like actors don't usually get that aggressive.
Kind of like
he was getting
Paul Bettany. I was gonna say like how Paul Bettany said about the cameo that in WandaVision.
Like when he was having to try and backtrack it. Yeah, exactly.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, when he had to backtrack it and try and temper expectations. Like this sounds like damage control speak, not I'm coyly trying to sit this out speak.
Think
you know what I mean?
If it's damage control, then Kevin Feige will come out and say it. Because when there was all those rumors about Chris Evans showing up in Falcon and Winter Soldier, Chris Evans made a tweet about it, but then Kevin Feige came out in an interview and said that Chris Evans not going to be in it. He already answered it online, and I think that was the temper expectations, and I feel like they would do the same thing if Andrew Garfield wasn't in this film.
Potentially, and Chris, I will go to you after this. Yeah. My counter to that is, with WandaVision, a lot of the temperament came from Paul Bettany himself and then director Matt Shakman. Feige himself never actually commented on any of it. It was all coming from the creators themselves. So it's gone both ways before. Diaz, go ahead. I'll let you go now.
So there was something on May 5th that also him backtracked a little bit, because he also said, I pulled this off the thing on After Hollywood. I heard all the rumor and everything. The big fan can't see a really good idea. As a fan, just as a pure fan, a really cool idea. But yeah, as I said previously, not something that ain't being given the responsibility of disappointing people. And not something I've been asked about or anything like that. But never say never.
Okay.
If someone, if he deny it, but he would end his sentence with never say never, that kind of...
Right.
Yeah.
That, to me, is the difference, and this is my thing with that, because I did see that interview as well. That, to me, is the difference between doing an interview for Access Hollywood, which is a legitimate publication source, and doing an interview on Josh Horowitz's podcast, where you can be much more casual. And Horowitz is a guy who speaks to celebrities. He does do interviews, but he speaks to celebrities, so you're seeing a much more natural side of Garfield. Whereas when you're speaking to the Access Hollywood stand-in for 5 minutes, it's like a junket, essentially. It's a very much more professional setting. That, to me, is him saying the same exact thing, just not getting passionate about it, tempering it and saying it in a, this is a studio note way to say that. Right? Because the truth is, I mean, yeah, never say never. Absolutely. I didn't put it in there because there was stuff I had to cut out. But even Michael B. Jordan this week was asked about, there's this rumor going around that you might come back as Killmonger and take a leading role. And the person on the radio station asked him, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you rate that? And he said 2. He said, I give it a 2 because giving it a 0 does seem ridiculous because it's a comic book film, but I'm not in the movie. Don't go thinking that. Right? Now, the internet will probably take that, turn it around, and spend the next 20 months talking about how Michael B. Jordan's going to be the secret lead of Black Panther 2. But the point in being is, actors would be dumb to ever just straight up say no to something, but that doesn't mean they can't deny the involvement in the moment. So I see where you're coming from.
Yeah. It feels like the book kept secret and con if they actually cannot he is in the movie. Because it's just like, sort of like back and forth, thinking that Tobey Maguire didn't have to tell it if that's true or not. And it's just like, we don't know until either we get full cast list or freaking trailer at this point for this movie.
I will say,
the fact that they have And Sony haven't said anything to acknowledge or deny it. It's really saying something.
To be fair, I don't think Tobey Maguire has denied it because Tobey Maguire is known for being a notorious prick to interviewers. So I just don't think anybody wants that smoke. I don't think they want to go near that one at all. Garfield is the much more palatable person to talk to. So I think that's why he's getting all of it now. Because God help the person who asks Tobey Maguire the question he doesn't want to be asked.
Look, I just need to know if his door got fixed. Okay. Did he pay his rent? Did he pay his rent? And is his door fixed?
That'll be the post-credit scene. That's Toby's involved in the post-credit scene, showing the door's fixed.
Because he did say you'll get your rent when you fix this damn door. Now, was the damn door fixed?
I think they're not trying to be.
That's what Spider-Man 4 is. That's what Raimi wants to do.
Yes.
I think they're not trying to do it like they did with J.K. Simmons cameo, like trying to keep it secret, but unlike J.K. Simmons, like we knew about, they feel like so many successful appearing that so many, leaks been happening.
Well, if half your cast is former people returning, it's a lot different than keeping one person who is a very low-key actor a secret. Like, despite the fact that J.K. Simmons has a ton of fanfare around him, he's also not somebody who everyone looks at like, what's your next project? You know what I mean? So, like, that's a real easy slip him in and out. I mean, shit, they probably filmed it from his home. Stick a green screen behind him. Because, like, it was clearly a green screen background. You know what I mean? They could have done that. They could have sat him at McDonald's and set a green screen up and did it.
Like, Toby's in really good shape, too.
He's been acting for the last 6 years, so...
And his Twitter was reacting.
Quiet. I'll go to you.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really know. I've just been listening. The whole thing is just kind of. I don't really know what to take on it or what my take on it is. I don't know if he's bluffing, if he's being for real. It may be a little bit of both. But you kind of got to take actors at what they're at face value at this day and age. Kind of like what I said about the WandaVision thing. It could be him walking something back. It could be him just kind of screwing with the audience. But it's kind of like Sean said. Like he's pretty particular about the MCU, and so I think. If there was anything like that, especially with a prominent actor like that, I think he would be pretty on top of, if there was any kind of question or anything, he would come out and say like, all right, I don't want people to be pissed off, so this is the way it's going to be, or this.
At this point, they'll be pissed off.
Either way, yeah, you're never gonna make everybody happy all the time. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. So if you go to an Instagram comment section that has anything to do with this movie, it is just lit up in the comments of like, if they're not here, we riot. If they don't show up, da 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 da. And it's like, well, first off, no, you're not. You're still gonna see the next movie in 3 weeks. But second off, like.
Test me.
Look, at the end of the day, what'd you say?
Test me.
Well, if you want to get technical, the next Sony Marvel film after that is Morbius. So I think you could probably skip that if you want.
Yeah, I'll be fine without that.
Probably not good.
I don't need to see somebody basically take a camera and record Jared Leto walking around. Because that's Jared Leto. He's actually a legit vampire. So they just basically recorded him and just added it to the movie.
Yeah. God, that
was... We got Venom 2 coming out September. We got Spider-Man coming out September. And Morbius coming out. It's February. They changed the release date for that. So
it's January still. Yeah. We'll get into that in a bit. They did move it again, but it's January still.
Yeah.
I think only one of those movies has a real hope in hell of being good, and it's Spider-Man. Like Venom 2, I have more faith in because it's Andy Serkis. But I'm as a full-on director, for me, he's 1 for 2. I thought Breathe was a really great small drama. I was not a fan of his Jungle Book, so we'll see what happens. And then Look, I'm sorry. You don't take a blockbuster 8 months out from its release date and push it into fucking January and try and tell me that it's a good film. Like, that's damage control right there. That's, oh my God, we got to do something to make money. The only blockbuster that's ever put itself in January and I've looked at it and gone, okay, maybe it has a shot at being good, was that third Maze Runner film. And that's only because that movie had so many legitimate production issues and cost increases with the insurance of Dylan O'Brien that it's like, okay, they're desperate to make money. I can see why they put it in January when nothing good's coming out.
It wasn't delayed, but Deadpool did come out in January.
No, that was February.
Yeah, it was
That was
February.
January.
No, because the first one was Valentine's.
Oh, okay.
I mean, but every now
It was.
yeah. And not to get January, we had some good movies come out in January. Like, I didn't mind that Blade for Life last year. That came out in January. Oh.
Interesting take, Jacob.
Blade is actually being played by Ryan Gosling. They're just afraid to say it. They're just afraid to say it.
It's Viggo Mortensen.
It's Viggo Mortensen, yes.
And that's
Green Book too.
Also came out in January. So we got some good movies come out in January.
Well, yeah, every once in a while a broken clock's right twice a day, but it's wrong 10 times, so not 10, 22, whatever. Time's difficult. So, okay, so let's get into some of the other stories in this. I'm gonna go to the Doctor Strange one because I do think that's rather interesting, right? So the idea that in the conception of the series, Doctor Strange was a piece of the finale. However, this was actually not a COVID-related deletion. This was for story purposes, they thought it would be a good idea to take him out so that the story ends and focuses on Wanda and not on Doctor Strange is going to be working with Wanda, because that's certainly how it would have been taken. Matt, I saw your face kind of reacting to it as I was reading it, so I'll go to you first on that one.
So I always have an issue when people make last second changes. I think if Doctor Strange was going to be there, and honestly, I think it was a more
Christ,
Eminem. He's doing the album too, for Blade, but no, he'll make a song like he did for Venom. Venom. Knock knock, let the devil in. I
love Eminem. That's a terrible song.
I love him. I love the song. I love the song. Good or bad, I love it. Anyway,
definitely
for
bad.
me, maybe
it was better than Revival.
But no, yeah. But anyway, Doctor Strange, WandaVision. I think Doctor Strange was a bigger role than just a whole, he appears at the end in a cameo, because I think in the beginning of the episode, especially with the one that had the name Wanda appear a lot, I personally think that was Doctor Strange trying to break in as well and trying to control her, because it would pull up Wanda and sometimes it would show it twice and whatnot. I could be wrong, but I think that ended up being the case. That's another, actually, I will give you some credit there. So that is another detail that was included. Not what you're saying in particular. I read it after the write-up and I forgot to add it in. Yeah. The trailers that were in each episode were actually originally envisioned as Doctor Strange's way of attempting to break through to her. However, after his appearance was axed, they reworked some of them and decided to make them just kind of funny, weird little add-ins to each episode to go with it. But originally, that was his way of attempting to, in theme with what she was doing, break through to her himself. Right. And, look, if it was just a cameo and I was always like, oh, okay, it's a, kind of like Nick Fury at the end of, Iron Man with the post-credit scene. If it was something like that, okay, cool. But they clearly decided to set up Doctor Strange 2 anyway with the post-credit scene. So if their whole thing was, we don't want to set it up, then cut that post-credit scene out entirely. And Kevin Feige did say they were setting, this would lead directly to Doctor Strange. Right. So why cut him? The specific point in it, and like I said, I can't totally get into everything in the video, but the point that they were trying to hammer in, and funny enough, we talked about Kevin Feige speaking out. This came directly from Kevin Feige himself. The point that they were trying to hammer in with it was they did want to set up Doctor Strange, and obviously it is leading into Doctor Strange. That's not a point they were trying to avoid. However, originally the idea was, towards the end of the Westview
disaster, whatever they're going to call it, or right after it's over, Strange was supposed to come in and kind of visibly take Wanda under his wing as like a mentor, like a mentoree.
Mhm.
And what they wanted in terms of the story, what they decided on, rather than having Strange potentially come into the battle and be a part of the battle, because we do see the wall start to fluctuate, so he could get in then, or coming in after it's busted, was they wanted, thank you, mentee, that's the word, thank you. So they wanted the focus to be on Wanda's emotional journey, right? So rather than potentially having Doctor Strange come in a part of the battle, they wanted Wanda to win the battle by herself, rather than having him come in and kind of walk her through her emotional trauma and say, I'm going to help you. They wanted her to deal with that moment all on her own. And then they decided to pull the filmed clip from Doctor Strange 2 and use that as the setup in the post-credits instead. Rather than, because basically they felt that if Strange shows up at the end of the episode, no matter how they try and do it, the focus from the audience will be on, oh my God, Strange is here, Strange is here, Strange is here. And everything with Wanda might have, in the audience's mind, kind of got thrown under the bus. So they didn't want to dilute any of that, is the point.
I don't know.
There's positive and negative to both, so I can see your side.
Right. I just think, just based on who Doctor Strange is, when you have something like that happening and it's not too far away from you, you would think Doctor Strange would, because it's not like the whole Spider-Man Falcon Winter Soldier thing where, they could just say he was in, London. He's literally not that far away. You have something like that. He's supposed to protect the universe from things like that. So that's another thing. But, I had issues with the series finale anyway. This would have made it a little better. I still wouldn't have been the biggest fan of the finale, but still, I just don't like that they do things at the last second.
And this isn't a point that somebody like Kevin Feige made. This is a point that I saw a fan make. But obviously, so they cut Cumberbatch out before they filmed. Now that's filming of the first episode, not the final episode. Before they went to set at all, they made the decision to cut Cumberbatch, right? But somebody brought up the point of, well, they ended up having to film the last episode or two after quarantine anyways, and it was one of the, I believe, the first productions that got back up and running. Would they have, again, just based on where it was filming, would they have even been able to get him there in the first place? Would that have caused a bigger issue? Because I think you do kind of have to take that into effect. And as we saw, and you're right, that finale has issues. It's one of the weaker episodes of the show, in my opinion. And, and they've explained away some of it with like the sequence that gives exits to certain characters a little better, like Monica or Darcy or, Boner. They get better exits or more use in the episode. And that stuff got cut due to filming and time constraints and budget constraints of the CG. And so, it was already fucked with because of COVID. And so I wonder, would this have been something that got fucked with as well? Was it secretly a blessing they cut him, or we will never know. Kevin, I'll go to you next. You can touch on this one if you want, or if one of the other stories stood out to you. What stood out to you at the rest of this set?
No, this one actually stood out to me the most, I think. I was a big fan of WandaVision. And I like how, MCU has a habit, or a good habit, I think, of being able to tell interconnected stories. The ability to have character crossovers is kind of their strong suit. But WandaVision was driven by two specific characters that kind of, in the main movies, they were kind of their stories were more told from the sidelines, I felt like, and this was their time to shine, and so I was happy with the fact that they didn't bring Doctor Strange in, because I felt like this gave them both the full effect of, okay, from start to finish we got this, even though it was a weird show. It almost, it was almost kind of two different worlds there, but you still got the full effect of, the focus was solely on Wanda and Vision and their relationship and the kids and everything like that. So I like you said, Matt, like bringing in Doctor Strange or whoever said it, the focus would have instantly shifted and people would have been like, yeah, Wanda and Vision, but Doctor Strange, oh my god. So it kind of would have been like a spoiler alert, but Luke Skywalker showing up in Mandalorian kind of deal for me, where it's just it almost takes away from the point of the show. So I personally I'm glad they didn't do it. I'm glad they saved it, and I like that choice. But
Right.
I can see it from both sides personally. Yeah, I like it, but and I think it was the right move.
Right. And you, when you mentioned the Luke Skywalker thing, that actually kind of makes sense with what Elizabeth Olsen was saying, where there was a, big cameo, in this season. That would have been Doctor Strange. So I don't know if they were still filming at that time or not, or, at least with the final episode, but
Yeah,
at least that would have lined up with it.
That the quote that hers came from, we won't actually know, because that quote, the stuff with Bettany came later, but that quote was from a series. Basically, they did an extended interview with Schaefer, Olsen, Bettany, and Tiana Paris, and that interview was filmed all at one time, and they never really said when they filmed it, but it was released in chunks each week. They were releasing bits of the interview that kind of teased or related to something in that episode, right? So there was the thought, and this was my thought for the longest time, that they released the bit of, there's like a Luke Skywalker moment in the show that came out the same week that Evan Peters' appearance happened. Yeah. So that was always what my thought was. When the internet went bonkers talking about the final episode, my reaction, and I think I said on the show, my reaction was always, no, they were talking about Evan Peters, because they've done this every week, the week that Tiana Paris made her first appearance as Monica Rambeau, a whole chunk of her interview got released. The week before, they were talking about the breaking of the worlds. The week before that, they were talking about something related to that episode. Like, they've been timing this on purpose.
Okay.
And it was actually after that interview, they stopped airing bits of that interview because of what happened.
You could have just said, you might be right, Matt, and made me feel good.
I know, right?
Well, I was getting there.
Okay.
Depending on when it was filmed, I actually think you might be right. If they filmed that way in advance, like we know they did with certain marketing material, like we're getting marketing material now for A Quiet Place Part 2 that was recorded in fucking February of last year. If they did that with this show and held on to marketing footage, there's a chance you might be right. And they attempted to repurpose it for the Quicksilver thing, and then it got taken out of context.
Elizabeth Olsen came out and said she was referring to Evan Peters when she made that comment about the cameo.
No. Don't let's keep it. Let's keep it to
Matt.
Matt.
Listen, Matt, you'll probably have everything with Spider-Man down pat. You want to tell me the plot before it comes out too?
Yeah. So Norman Osborn's back. It's gonna be Willem Dafoe.
I'll go to you next. If you want to talk about the WandaVision, you can. Or did that or any of the other stories stand out to you?
Are you going to me next?
Yes.
I think I want to talk about the Thor casting. I think Sacha Baron Cohen is totally in that film. I don't know if he's playing a Greek god, or I've heard rumors.
Oh shit! I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, and I've also heard rumors they're going to do like another like Asgardian play. Because they had another rumor that like Melissa McCartney was going to cameo, and
they already
coming back, and Luke Hemsworth, his name is, or whatever. So.
Yeah, they already filmed that. They actually had Matt Damon, Hemsworth, Sam Neill, Melissa McCarthy, and I think the other one was her husband Ben Falcone was on set in a costume, and they filmed that scene already.
So I wonder, I guess if Sacha Baron Cohen is playing a Greek god, because I was kind of shocked that Russell Crowe was going to be playing Zeus. I felt like that came out of nowhere, but I'm super excited. So, like, hopefully Sacha Baron Cohen's playing a Greek god. That'd be really cool.
That would be cool. If he was playing like I don't know, Hades or something.
Imagine if he was Ares. Can you
Ah,
imagine?
that would be so sweet, man.
Yeah, and of course, like the other two at the meeting were obviously his wife, Isla Fisher, and she's more known as a singer, but Rita Ora has acted in things before, so there's absolutely a chance they could be involved too.
Would it be cool with Haiti touch her hair, Isla Fisher?
Potentially.
Yeah.
Diaz, before we close out this segment, I'll go to you. Which of these stories kind of stood out most to you?
The Loki thing, because someone who watched a lot of Disney Plus show, and funny enough, as it is, it played enough with Bad Batch, a High School Musical TV show, and then The Mighty Duck being on the same time. Nice to have Loki be on Wednesdays, giving Tuesday, to have you watch one back to back to back, like you did with The Bad Batch and The Mighty Ducks.
Which is exactly the point. So like according to the kind of the report that I read, and again, this part isn't official, just the movement is basically what the insider source from Disney was saying was that, stuff like Turner and Hooch and Mighty Duck and the Stamos show that's on about the basketball team, like those aren't considered A-list. Thank you. Yes, those aren't considered A-list shows for them. But they've also been airing a lot of those on Fridays as well. And so I guess Loki will be their first experiment of playing with air dates and seeing if we air something on a Wednesday, because their reasoning behind airing something on a Friday is out of any weekday, people are statistically more likely to either have a Friday off or watch something on a Friday when they get back. So that's their thought is we'll get the views in the first 24 hours. But like I said, based on its views and how it did the first time around, they do consider High School Musical an A-list show now. They do consider Bad Batch an A-list show because it's Star Wars. And so having 3 main shows that are drawing in potentially a ton of audience all on one day could lead to like day one cannibalization. Because like if you're someone like Diaz who clearly seems like there's intent to watch all 3 shows, when you have Bad Batch, which I'm assuming is around the 30-minute mark.
Yeah, it is.
High School Musical, the first season floated between the 25 and 40-minute mark per episode. And
30 minutes.
And Loki will probably float between the 40 and 50-minute mark per episode. So that's a lot of time you're dedicating to watching all this content. You know what I mean? And that's not counting if you are a viewer of one of those smaller shows. Like, I'm not watching Mighty Ducks. I've never seen the films, quite frankly, so I'm not watching it. But I know, one of our TMG members, Matty Graham, is loving the show because he is a huge Mighty Ducks fan. Diaz is watching it. So there's people viewing this stuff, even if it's not me, and I've been in that position before. God knows nobody watched fucking Noelle when that came out when Disney Plus launched. But I did. Don't watch it. It's not worth it. But I did see it. And so there's always someone to watch the content, even if you might not think there will be. And so I think if this works, I think it's a great way of divvying up the content and saying, you can go here, you can go here, you can go here. And it's a way of having overlapping series, right? Because what if we reach a point where maybe we get another long, because Loki will be 6 episodes, that is confirmed. But what if we get a Marvel show that runs a Star Wars length, right? Because Mando's been 8 and 8 episodes, and now Bad Batch is 16. Season 7 was 12. So what are the odds that we get a Marvel show that does decide to go longer? If I'm correct, What If is potentially 10 plus episodes. Like, they haven't announced how they divvied up the seasons. They just said we put like 30 episodes of it into production. And they have said it'll be split up over multiple seasons, but we don't know if that'll be like a 15 and 15 or a 10 and 10 and 10. We just know they put episodes into production, right? So that could be one of those longer shows. And I think having the ability to not overlap as much is a great thing. So with that, we'll go ahead and move on. Just to bring up the only thing that didn't get brought up, the Cary, Scoveland, and Wyatt Russell interviews where they were asked about their future. Yeah, it makes sense. They're clearly very in early development on this Captain America movie, so it makes sense that nobody's really been contacted outside of the people writing the script.
One question about U.S. Agent. Do you think at the end of Falcon and Winter Soldier, they made a new costume for him that was black, or was his blue costume that was just like they in post production they just turned it black?
I think she made it new. I think it's a new costume she made for him.
Mm.
Yeah.
I feel like in that room and the way the lighting was coming through the windows, I was like, did they pull like a black suit like Superman, Henry Cavill, and just change the color?
They may have done it. They may have done it in color grading, but I think in series she gave him a new costume.
Oh, okay.
It probably because it's the exact same design, so they may have just color graded it. I wouldn't pass it on them. But yeah, so at go ahead.
That leave it to Disney. I really that any crazy casting rumors like illegally drive to show up and Falcon with the Soldier and never saw it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that, we'll go ahead and move on to topic 3. But first, we do have to lose one of our panelists, Mr. Kevin Poss. Thank you so much for coming on After Dark after a extended hiatus. We'd love to have you back sometime in the future. Sure. Where can the people find you?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, and it's been fun. You can find me on TMG Trivia. I am the commissioner of TM Geek. Just wanted to plug, we do have 2 matches dropping tomorrow on Sunday. You can find at 7 p.m. it'll be Ryan Payne versus Devontae King. Both players coming in with a 1-1 record, so that'll be an awesome match. And then following that at 9 p.m., it'll be our second rookie brawl featuring Alex Martinez and Noah McCausland and JD Domash. And then I have guest host Chad Webb with me tomorrow night. So check those out if you can. I would love to have, if you're interested in Geek, like I said, Chris plays, Aaron plays, Sean, yeah, totally forgot your name. The dude that writes on the plate. No, I'm just kidding. He plays. So yeah, it's a good time. And if you're ever interested in playing, hit me up, and we'll definitely get you into a match. But thank you again for having me on. This was a great time, and I'll definitely be back.
Absolutely. So while Kevin makes a silent exit during the video, let's go ahead and get into some non-Marvel news. It's been here over an hour. Let's talk about something other than Marvel. But I won't stray too far for you superhero fans. This week, a series of reports that began with The Hollywood Reporter and added on to by other sites, it is now very highly believed that the Superman project that is being worked on by J.J. Abrams and writer Ta-Nehisi Coates will be centered around a black Kal-El, better known by civilian name Calvin Ellis. The script should be finished by December, at which point casting for the character will most likely begin. Meanwhile, while Nehisi Coates is finishing up the script, Abrams is currently working to find a director for the project. Abrams immediately took himself out of contention for directing, despite the long-standing rumors of it and apparent interest from Warner's, as he felt passionate about offering the opportunity to a black director. Abrams' personal shortlist includes director Barry Jenkins, Stephen Caple Jr., J.D. Dillard, Regina King, and Shaka King. All we know about the story is that it will most likely be another Superman origin story, and that it is looking like it'll be another separated universe film from the DCEU, similar to the Batman and Joker. Speaking of Joker, THR also reported this week that Joker 2 is apparently still in the works. The original 2019 hit was never destined to spawn a sequel, but director Todd Phillips did go into it with potential ideas should the film be a success, and I'd call grossing over $1 billion at the worldwide box office a success. However, we haven't heard anything since October 2019. It seems that the film is still in active but early pre-production. Original writer and director Todd Phillips and star Joaquin Phoenix apparently have loose agreements with Warner that imply that they will return, with the specific details being hammered out. As for potential story beats, nothing is really known yet, outside of the fact that it will continue to focus on Arthur Fleck from the first film. It'll be interesting to see how the story develops. While speaking with online reporter Inverse, actor Justice Smith was asked about any developments on the upcoming Detective Pikachu sequel. Smith revealed that he actually hadn't been contacted or heard anything about the film. As far as he was aware, neither had any other actors from the first film. He then stated that, in his own opinion, despite the first film being a financial and critical success, he doesn't believe that a sequel will get made, just based off the fact simply that it is now 2 years since the original's release, and there's been no movement as far as anyone's aware. He then made sure to clarify that he is not an official studio source, just an actor with a belief, and the last that we officially have heard from Warner was in 2019 when they announced they were moving forward on a sequel. All right, going into this last story, this technically does contain a spoiler alert for Mortal Kombat. Please mute me if you have not seen the film and care, and do not turn it back on until you see the panel on the screen. With that said, while speaking with The Hollywood Reporter, actor Joe Taslim was asked about his future with the Mortal Kombat franchise should a sequel get made. Taslim, who'd previously signed a 4-film contract, said that even though he has no control over what happens to his character should he be brought back, he would love to follow the traditional game route of Bihan becoming the character of Noob Saibot. He then went on to state that while he'll come back to do whatever they want him to, he only has true interest in playing Sub-Zero again in a prequel scenario, expanding and exploring the opening 10 minutes of the film and Bihan's history with the Lin Kuei. He ended by saying that he looks forward to seeing potentially another actor's take on Sub-Zero after his, should that be. Yeah, so I'll go ahead and head to Sean first. Out of those 4 stories, which of them kind of piqued your interest the most?
Black Superman. So again, like, this is just what THR reported. There's no like official statement from Warner Brothers, but
right.
Black Superman,
yeah.
if it is Kal-El, if it is Clark Kent from Kansas and not Calvin Ellis, this is complete fucking bullshit. Like, Clark Kent is not a black character. Making him a black character changes, like, it fundamentally changes who Clark Kent is, why he does things, his complete background. This is the wrong way to do diversity in a superhero film. Like, if you look at Marvel or Sony, or even just Marvel Comics, how they didn't make Peter Parker black. They created a brand new character, Miles Morales, made him half black and half Hispanic. And that's how you include diverse people into these stories, not by changing a character that's been around since like the 1940s and the late 1930s and just making him black. Like, it's I'm totally against this. If this is true, if this is what happens.
I didn't bring it up in the video because basically that part of the THR article, essentially they say these are less reliable sources than the people that are giving us like the directing info. Yeah. But other websites have ran with it and popularized it, so it is what it is. Essentially, what this part of the rumor is that the character will be Calvin Ellis. I think that is his name, right? Mm-hmm. Calvin Ellis, but early indications of the story make it seem like it'll be another variant of the Clark Kent story, just with the character of Calvin Ellis being the Superman this time. Yeah. What that fucking means, I don't know. I hope to God they're not doing like. I think this is a real opportunity, like with the Red Sun comics, to look, if you want to keep the archetype of Superman, that's fine. But, let's take this somewhere we don't naturally see. Like, I love one of the, like a couple of those directors, right, that were in that have made films in which where they're set have a lot to do with the film, right? Shaka King with Judas and the Black Messiah, right? The location of, I want to say it's Chicago, but I may be wrong. But the location of everything that has to do with that film plays a huge part into it. Even this was a much smaller film, but J.D. Dillard, who directed a film a couple years ago called Slight, which if you haven't seen, I think it's a really small but rather underrated kind of superhero light flick. But that was set in like, I believe it was Compton, LA. It was set in like a more what people would call ghetto, quote unquote, area of California, right? I think taking a character there and exploring not one of those scenarios necessarily, but exploring settings like that. And I like that they're bringing directors in mind that have a theme for location, even like, and I don't know if he'll sign on because he has this Lion King sequel in development, but Barry Jenkins, right, where Miami and for a bit Atlanta in Moonlight and New Orleans in If Beale Street Could Talk, again, settings are such a huge part of the influence and the culture that those films are displaying. I think if they're trying to emulate a Clark Kent type story, but for a totally different audience, then I think they could make something potentially really powerful with this. But I speak as, and I make this joke, but like as the white person, if they're just going to take a black character from the comics and drop him in the same scenario as the white character previously was, there's no fucking point. Just do Henry Cavill again. If you're not going to bring, especially with the filmmakers you're looking at and how creative some of their films have come out, because that's a great lineup of 5 directors. I like all those choices. If you're going to put all this effort into making, like Warner want JJ to direct, JJ says, no, I want a black storyteller to tell this story. That's important to this. If you're going to make all this hubbub about that, but not tell what could be a genuine story that people can relate to, and you're just going to make the Clark Kent story but with a black guy, fuck off. There's no point. There's really no point to doing this. Just bring Henry Cavill back. And next time, don't tweet about it on his birthday. Let's just be polite. Let's not do it on his birthday. That's not fair to the poor guy. Diaz, I saw your hand go up, Beer. I know you want to go last, so I'll go to Diaz for next on this.
So, he my first thought, kind of shitty that he announced this on his birthday. That was kind of a little shitty. And I'm going to say this.
He's not on their calendar. What are you going to do?
I am nervous to see what Warner is doing with the DC in general. Just like the backtracking, they take a step forward, then they take a step back situation. I love the directing choice. I love Eddie Jenkins. I would personally pick, because they'd be interesting under the direction, Regina King, because I love One Night in Miami a lot, like you did with that, especially one location in general.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, another one, yes.
And the scene and the conversation she wants to make such engaging what a type story. Same with Barry Jenkins. I love her Beale Street for talk. Either one of them to make interesting story. Even Triking for just
I'm sorry, I'll let you finish, not to cut you off, but just because I mentioned directors and locations, I'd be remiss but to mention Stephen Caple Jr., who handled Creed 2. Chicago plays such a big part in those films, and he executed that really well. So all of these directors have directed films that are very location heavy and location centric. But please continue, Chris. Sorry, I thought of it, so I wanted to say it.
I am nervous just to see it. Just gave me, I hope to God, a different Superman, because one of the people here hoping eventually Henry Cavill come back. They go back to content eventually, but they're just trying to write off the success of Black Panther to me a little bit. Just we need because we haven't got a Green Lantern movie yet. They're not going with a Black Green Lantern yet. They want to have a black superhero.
Potentially, and they have multiple black lead superhero films in development, right? Obviously, there was all the drama with Cyborg, and we know that film's pretty much dead in the water. But they have Static Shock, which is in active development, and it was a rumor a couple of weeks ago that just never got brought up. But apparently, Caleb McLaughlin of Stranger Things is in negotiations for that role. We've also heard Blue Beetle coming out. Now, I do believe Blue Beetle is actually Hispanic. I don't believe he's black. But the point in being, and again, they hired Angel Soto, who directed Charm City Kings last year, which again is another very culture-centric film focusing on a specific sect of culture. This is something that's clearly important to them and that they're focusing on, and that's why I say, and I agree with Sean 100%. If you're gonna do it, fucking do it. Put effort into this. Don't just make it something we've already seen before. Because quite frankly, if another goddamn baby crashes in Kansas, there's no need for it. Beer, go ahead and get into this, man.
And also, WB could do this with Green Lantern. They have Jon Stewart. Instead, they're doing a Green Lantern show and casting Guy Gardner, which is everyone's 5th favorite Green Lantern. So I just don't understand.
So, I want to start this off by saying that I am not against a black Superman. In fact, I would love to have a black Superman. Bring on Calvin Ellis. I would love to have Calvin Ellis. Big fan of that. However, how they're approaching this, pisses me the fuck off.
If it's true, let me just
because we're talking about the same studio that in Justice League cut out a ton of footage of their black superhero lead and fired him out of the Flash and canceled his movie. We're talking about the same DC that, you know, wouldn't have a black lead in Krypton because Superman can't have a black grandfather. We're talking about the same people that cut Jon Stewart out of Zack Snyder's movie and told him, if you put Jon Stewart in this movie, we're canceling the movie. But we're diverse guys. We're super diverse.
To be fair, that one had nothing to do with race, and you know it.
Well, here's the thing.
That was an and
they're
or.
acting like they're diverse.
But that was an and or. That was you get Manhunter or you get Jon Stewart. Both are African American actors. That had nothing to do with race.
Martian Manhunter is an alien. Jon Stewart is a human being. There's a little difference between the race thing. So I see the point, but I don't agree with the point because it's a completely different. Because Martian Manhunter is a green dude that's an alien, and Jon Stewart is a black man. So they said you can't have him in the movie. So they're trying to act like they're diverse, and now they're trying to, just like with their movies, rush things and then combine things and make it a mess. Now, if they wanted to do Calvin Ellis, like I said, no problem at all. Do Calvin Ellis. But by the sounds of it, they're basically, if they're even going to go Calvin Ellis, they're going to mix the Clark Kent, Calvin Ellis story, and you don't do that. You have a great story with Calvin Ellis on its own, but they didn't even say if it was going to be Calvin Ellis. This could be Clark Kent, and you have Clark Kent, and you decide to do this on Henry Cavill's birthday.
Again, I'm going to interject again.
They never said.
Well, Warner, if we're being technical here, Warner hasn't commented on anything. True. But the reports from the inside sources have said that when questioned about it, they did confirm it was Calvin Ellis, and that other names that have been thrown around by fans and rumors included simply a black Clark Kent. I forget the full name, but there was also a Zod relative who's apparently black that was potentially thrown in as a name. That was also said no. They did definitively state, the source did say Calvin Ellis. Now, again, as I said, as to if it's Calvin Ellis with Clark Kent's backstory, then yeah, you're completely right on. But it is Calvin Ellis.
Sources tell the THR that Coates is crafting a Kal-El in the vein of the original Superman comic and will have the protagonist hail from Krypton and come to Earth. It sounds to me like they're mixing the two. And,
right.
Like you said,
Calvin Ellis
is also
called Kal-El in comics.
But still, they're going with the original Superman comic.
We're arguing too much for people who are on the same side.
Point being, that sounds like they're mixing the two. Like, that's my point. They're mixing the two. That's what pisses me off. Because, look, I have no problem if he lands in Kansas, but do the Calvin Ellis story. You know what I mean? Because I think you could do, or it doesn't have to be Kansas. It could be another predominantly white area that he could crash land to. That they could do something where they take the Calvin Ellis story, do the Calvin Ellis thing, but add, if they want to do the whole, race thing where it's like, almost like in Falcon and Winter Soldier, can we have a black Captain America? You could kind of do something like that where he's in a white area and, it kind of adds to it if they wanted to go that way, but it feels like they're mixing the two together. It's like, just go all in, do Calvin Ellis, and look, I know they're, they don't want to move on from, or they want to move on from Snyder, but, you have a Superman everybody loves. Do both. Let's have multiple Supermen in this, thing. You're going to have like all these universes clashing together anyway. Instead of getting rid of Henry Cavill, who wants to be Superman, who has said multiple times that he's ready to play Superman again, just, you're keeping Jason Momoa, you're keeping, Ezra Miller, you're keeping these guys. Keep Henry Cavill and then also do Calvin Ellis. That's also my thing, because they could have released this any other day. This could have came out literally the day after Henry Cavill's birthday.
Bad luck. I don't think they planned it.
I mean, maybe they didn't plan it, but
it was still. THR who released it. Again, DC has not said shit. This was THR that released it. And if Henry Cavill's
for this, and they didn't say anything.
They didn't report. It's not like Warner Brothers said Black Superman. Happy birthday, Henry Cavill. They didn't send that tweet out. That was THR. And I mean, at this point, I feel like Henry Cavill's barely on Warner Brothers' birthday calendar, so he's probably not on THR's.
Right.
So how are they to know?
I don't like how they're approaching this.
It was badly.
How they're approaching this is completely wrong. It almost feels like they're saying, "Hey guys, we're diverse. They're like it feels like they're trying to act in that way. But like I said, we're talking about the same studio that has issues with, people in their properties and whatnot that are black. Like the whole Ray Fisher thing. That was a disaster. We had the Krypton show thing. That was a disaster. They cut Jon Stewart out of the movie when you could have literally put him in the movie still. You could have said, whatever, Zach, put him in the movie, because you weren't going to continue with him anyway. But still, I mean, they could have done it, whatever. Point being, I hate how they're handling this. If they just came out and said, hey, it's going to be Calvin Ellis, we're going from the Calvin Ellis comic, storyline, awesome. But they're not doing that by the feeling of this. And also, I'm not a big fan of the writer that's involved with anyway because he hasn't written great comics.
Hey, that's totally fair. I know nothing about Ta-Nehisi Coates. I just know he's the guy writing the script.
He's not terrible, but...
So I'll do this before we move on to another story, because like me and Matt have talked about it when it's come up previously, and I believe Chris has as well. But Sean, since it's your first time, do you have a preference for, like, if this is the direction they're going, do you have like a casting preference in mind of who you would like to see take on the role?
Casting preference, I haven't thought that much about it. There's no one I could think of, like, right off the top of my head. I'd have to think about it. Something that kind of struck me is when you brought up Red Sun, and I guess just going back to if they do Calvin Ellis and kind of turn him into, give him the same scenario that Clark Kent got, but if they did do like a Red Sun where his spaceship crashed somewhere else, like in Oakland or something like that, and just that'd be so cool. Red Sun, Superman crash lands in Oakland, just call it Black Sun or something like that. Like that would be dope. But I really don't want to see. I think, yeah. So no one pops in my head for casting, but I guess you'd have to go super unknown. I feel like I wouldn't want to see Michael B. Jordan or Will Smith or anyone. And
Will Smith.
Will Smith just popped in my head because Will Smith was rumored, I think, like back with Superman Returns, I think.
Yeah.
So
that would have made sense then.
Yeah.
I would love it. Just don't even make him work out with the whole dad bod thing recently. Just have dad bod Will Smith show up and like.
Why can't we have a dad bod Superman?
Can we have him start singing?
Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah. So, look, my hope is, because I like, and I've said this on the show before, I absolutely 100% am happy that studios are taking an extra step to bring in representation, right? Like, I've made this joke before, but as a straight white male, I have had no problem finding representation of people to relate to in films. There's tons of those. Right. But I like that groups and ethnicities of people who were either just undershown, undervalued in film and art, or were horrifically stereotyped for so long, are now being given fair shots and fair chances at really good roles that are not only well written and well directed, well quality films, but are in positive lights. You know what I mean? Like, even something like with the Asian community, Crazy Rich Asians. Like, sure, that movie had some goofball characters, but there was nothing offensive in that film. That was, a movie entirely focused on Asian culture in a positive way. In a very similar sense, Black Panther, with Wakanda taking different bits of African culture and putting a positive light on it in the film. Like, all of that is a great thing, and the more and more we get of that, the better. And like, exactly, I like what you said. Let's take Superman and put him in Oakland. Oakland and Kansas are such different places with such different communities with such different issues that, like, I would love to see that tackled. And I can even see Matt's point of view of, like, listen, if we drop him in Kansas, we'll get a bit of a different view there. You drop Clark Kent in Kansas and he's probably hanging out with the jock white kids. You drop Calvin Ellis in Kansas and his best friend's like Jack Harlow or some shit. You're getting a very different point of view there. But either way, just don't I do not need Ma and Pa Ellis. I don't want that. I want there to be something different. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Even to an extent of if you're adapting certain elements of it, as long as it's done in a way that works and you can make something out of it, I think it could work, right? So for example, something that I was talking with a friend and they brought something up to me that I thought was actually a great point is if you set this film in somewhere that is I'll use Chicago as an example, right? I think everyone kind of notoriously knows that the South Side of Chicago is known for its violence, right? Yeah. If you set the film there, Pa Kent could go out through gang violence. If you want to recreate that, or whatever his the Ellis father could go out through gang violence, right? I feel like even though in Man of Steel, one of the big criticized things is it's a fucking tornado. Of course he could stop that if he wanted to, right? But I feel like in certain areas where to people, and I've never lived in Chicago, I've never even been there, but I do know people who have lived there, and at times it feels like something that is inescapable. So to lose someone to gang violence almost feels like something that's inescapable for people who may live there. I think that's something we've never seen before in a superhero film, and that's an element they could really touch on in a well-handled way. That's the key word, though, is well-handled. And I can only hope that's what they do. To go on to one of the other topics here, let's talk about why the fuck is Joker getting a sequel? I know it made $1 billion, but do we really need this?
No, we don't. But
I think that's just a headline to turn heads and get people talking. I don't think there'll ever be a sequel to Joker.
Okay, so then the follow-up question: why the fuck isn't Pokemon getting a sequel? Because that movie I could have seen getting a sequel.
They're dumb.
Yeah, you know what? I kind of like his Justice Smith's justification of why we're probably not getting a sequel. It's literally almost to date now because it was released on May 13th, I believe. It's 2 years later, and we've heard jack shits. And that's the truth, is most blockbuster films that do well that are getting a sequel, by 2 years, some of them you have the sequel released. You know what I mean? And for him and potentially some of the other bigger stars of the first film to have heard nothing about it, and it's not for lack of trying. I mean, Ryan Reynolds has filmed movies, but it's not like he's got a busted out schedule. Justice Smith is the same. He's made projects, but it's not like his schedule is so busted you can't get him in for a shoot. That to me just kind of, it makes me wonder, which sucks because I actually thought that movie was way better than I thought it was going to be. I mean, Pikachu was essentially PG Deadpool, but they did it well, so I was okay with it.
Yeah, it's weird because that film didn't bomb at all. It made box office bank, and to think that they've never, and Pokemon's such a huge franchise and still so popular, in show and card game and everything. So it's really is a mystery why they didn't greenlight a sequel. What was the problem that they had with that film that they didn't want to make a sequel to? Because if you look at Sonic the Hedgehog, I think in a couple of weeks of Sonic opening, it was greenlit for a sequel. But again, nothing's happened with this Pikachu film, and it seems like nothing is going to happen.
Right.
Yeah. So the last so to give you an idea of the movie, and this is obviously not counting theater cut or marketing, but its production budget was $150 million. Its worldwide box office gross was about $435. So it definitely turned a profit. Obviously, chunk a little bit out of that for theaters, maybe up it to 200 all in all with marketing, but that's still a profit. That's an over $100 million profit. You did not lose money on this film. The last we heard about this was, and yeah, it was correct, was even before the film had come out in January 2019, we'd heard that they were working on a sequel, and they had brought in Oren Uziel, who at the time didn't have a screenplay to his name. He's actually one of the writers on Mortal Kombat, which just came out. So he was attached, and then in May and June of that year, there were more yeah, it's happening. He's still attached and writing it. And then the next thing literally on it, when I look at the timeline, is Smith making these comments. So it's incredibly weird how silent this went. Maybe him saying this will get Warner to say something. Maybe they'll... maybe he'll get a call that Garfield might not have. No, that's me being a dick.
He's in it.
I wonder. I Justice Smith is in Spider-Man. I'm cool with that. I
No,
like him as an
Garfield.
actor.
Maybe Justin Smith too. Who knows?
I'm
Come
cool
on
with
to the
that.
party, Justin. Come on in.
Everybody else is there apparently.
Yeah.
Jesus. Yeah. So I'd love to see a sequel to it. Whether or not it gets made, I don't know. And then obviously the last one was the Sub-Zero comments. Which, has everyone here seen Mortal Kombat?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. If you haven't, I won't make this long. Just mute it, and once you see us move on, like clearly, then we'll do that. Yeah, I don't know a lot about the games, if I'm being totally real. I don't know if either of you have extensive knowledge of the games.
Not really, no.
Just from the videos I've watched on YouTube about the.
Okay, fair enough. Because when I saw the movie, I remember one of my criticisms of it was like, what the fuck was up with those villains? They were all so fucking weird. And I kept calling one dude, I can't even remember his name now, but I kept calling one dude, what was up with the Predator dude with the weirdly mixed voice? Mm-hmm. And somebody told me, he's a huge character from the game. And I was like, oh, okay. I would have never guessed that. I literally only know the iconic characters. Before this movie, I've played a couple of different Mortal Kombats, but to be truthful, before this movie, I couldn't have told you Kung Lao's name. I just could tell you that's the guy with the hat. I knew the guy with the hat when I saw him, but I didn't know his name. And so this character of Noob Saibot, which I guess is a thing in the games, and I remember in the original films, as bad as they are, they did have two Sub-Zeros. They did make a point of killing one off and bringing in another Sub-Zero. So I guess that's a thing in the history of the games, is the original Sub-Zero dies off and comes back as this character Noob Saibot. And then a new person comes in and kind of takes over the mantle of Sub-Zero. Cool. If that's where they're going, it gives us another new character to meet. I've always traditionally known Sub-Zero as a good guy. It's always seemed like Scorpion's the bad guy and Sub-Zero's the good guy. So I was a little confused when they were mixed in the film. I just thought it was a change for the film. Maybe this new Sub-Zero is closer to a good guy, and that's the switch we get there. But I think it'd be an interesting decision, no matter what they do. I thought the film was fun, and if it makes money and they make another fun film, yeah, sure, I'll see another one. What were your guys' thoughts on it?
I don't care.
Fair enough. Sean?
I think the fans are so opinioneted about Mortal Kombat, and just so I've been hearing for the past couple months, the storyline is what makes Mortal Kombat, it's the best thing that comes out of it. It's not just the fighting and the fatalities. So honestly, I would just, bring Sub-Zero back as Noob Saibot and just do what the fans want, because they're the ones that are going to see this film, the majority of them. So I would just try to make them happy and also have a good film with good storyline and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I will say, as somebody who doesn't really know the story of Mortal, I know the newer games have a lot of story in them, and I have seen some of that. But the older games, I never really got the feeling there was much story outside of fight, Sub-Zero wins, fatality. I never really got anything outside of that. Unless it's fucking Destiny, where it's all on lore packs and wiki pages. And so shout out if you got that reference. But I never got the feeling that there was much story in those games. So when I saw the movie, as somebody who has played the games and is a fan of the games I've played, but not a mega fan, I was really curious as to what the fans' reaction would be to the story in the film, because I thought it worked perfectly fine. I honestly thought it worked perfectly fine. I had no issues with it. I thought the implementation of this new character in Cole Young, someone who's never been in the games, I thought they handled that really well. I thought it was entertaining overall. So we'll go ahead and get into one final brief discussion before we head out. But before we do, we're going to have Mr. Sean Hunter take his exit here. Sean, first off, thank you for coming on, man. It's been great to have you, and we'd love to have you back in the near future if you want to come back on. Other than that, where can people find you?
I guess you could find me in my next match, where hopefully I do as well as last time. I'll remember to bring my lucky plate back. I want to thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun just to talk about movie stuff, movie comic book nerdy stuff with you guys. This was just a treat.
Absolutely, man. Well, thank you for coming on. Go ahead and drop out at any point. And yeah, we will have you back on in the very near future, man. Thank you. Yeah, so Diaz should be back. We'll go ahead and move him to the back just for the moment till he gets here. And we're going to go ahead and move into, for the final 15 minutes or so of the show, a discussion topic. And it's kind of funny that it's just me and you here now, because it's something we kind of talked about last week a little bit before moving on. And I thought it would make a very interesting discussion topic, which is, should the next project in the MonsterVerse be Song of Kong or something else? So basically, what last week we talked about, I do have a little write-up I'll read. So last week we discussed how director Adam Wingard is being lined up to direct the next film in the MonsterVerse franchise. Should it continue in the form of Son of Kong? And there was a short but spirited discussion on if that was the right move for the franchise. And so I decided it'd be fun to kind of continue that point. And so I sat down myself and kind of came up with a couple of points that I would like to present. And it's kind of funny now because it's me versus beer. So if you're cool with it, I like to present what I came up with and then see if any of it affects you in any way, and then kind of have that discussion. Because obviously we talked about, there was that interview with Adam Wingard where he kind of talked about how originally they were going to end it in such a way that kind of sets up alien invasion, potentially. I don't know much about it, but I know there's a Destroy All Monsters film in the Toho series, something along those lines, probably with a more modernistic feel. And obviously we did not get that because of contractual issues, them trying to re-sign Godzilla, all that, yada, yada. So I'm interested to see. So here's what I came up with. So I have 5 reasons on the side as to why I think it should work. First is simple math. We've had 2 Godzilla films, 1 Kong film, 1 crossover film. Let's even it out. 2 and right. That's easy enough. The second is, one of the biggest complaints that people have with these films is that there's too much of the human stuff. The human stuff happens too much. Out of the 2 Titans, Kong is the more emotive of the 2 Titans, and Kong is also, with the exception, obviously Godzilla has like Billy Bobby Brown and all that, but Kong directly has human characters that know Kong and are invested in Kong. And so I think obviously you'll probably need 1 or 2 additions at the very least, but you have a small sect of a cast that would allow you to work with the more emotive of the 2 kaijus to not rely on humans as much in the film, potentially, right?
Right.
A Kong film could theoretically explore Hollow Earth more than a Godzilla film would, presuming they kind of stick to their chest bump deal at the end of the film and stay away from each other. Kong now has Hollow Earth. That's an area I think a lot of people want to see more of. Specifically, if it is Wingard that comes back, there was also kind of the thought of Jordan Vogt Roberts might have been offered it, and maybe he turned it down, and that's how Wingard ended up in this position. But I thought Wingard did a great job. Again, kind of talking, this is really not the same point, but is with the character behind Kong, as much as you can give a character like Kong, I thought he was developed in a better way in this film than he was in Skull Island. And so I think Wingard does a good job with kind of these dialogueless characters and developing them. So I think he'd work really well with Kong if we're going to give him another role. And also, and this is more like a facts thing, of the first 3 MonsterVerse films, in my opinion, Kong Skull Island is the best of those films. Statistically, of all 4 films, Kong Skull Island has the best reviews of the bunch, I believe. It's about equal in terms of Rotten Tomato percentage with Godzilla vs. Kong and Godzilla, but it had more reviewers on it. So I believe it had more positive reviews technically.
Yeah.
And it's also the most financially successful of the 4 films. And obviously Godzilla vs. Kong is pandemic affected, but by a margin, it's the most successful. I think it would just make sense to take the film that's made you the most money and sequelize it. Outside of that, I think we can have a fun little discussion around this. Go ahead and let me, hit me. What do you think about some of the stuff I brought up? And I'm assuming you still stand by Give Me Aliens.
Yeah, yes, the King Kong, Kong Skull Island was more profitable than the two Godzilla movies. I don't necessarily want to count Godzilla just because of the time, or Godzilla versus Kong because of the time we're in. I honestly think if there was no COVID or anything like that,
it does probably make more.
I think it would have been the highest selling movie out of the 5 movies,
and that's fair.
So that's simply why I don't count it. But
it made more than both Godzilla films.
Right. Yes. And it's funny. It made more than the King of the Monsters, and it really didn't have much of a wide release, like compared to what King of the Monsters did.
Yeah. Because I think of when it came out, it wasn't the only blockbuster out, so it didn't have all the big screens and all that like King of the Monsters did.
True. But for me, I'm just simply not interested in Son of Kong. That's just something I really don't care about. I think there's other monsters, even if they didn't want to go the alien route. Let's have a movie for some of the other monsters that haven't had a movie, at least American version, because we've gotten Godzilla, we've gotten King Kong. What about some of the other monsters, whether they were in...
Well, they killed 3 off in King of the Monsters.
True, but whether they were in King of the Monsters or not, I don't know a whole lot about the monster.
You want me to give you a list? I can pull up Toho and start reading off creatures.
Sure. I probably have no idea what half of them are, but sure.
I'll do my best to explain them. Keep going.
But use one of the monsters we haven't seen yet. I know Son of Kong is not King Kong, but still, let's go into more of that direction where it's not like a King Kong type movie or a Godzilla type movie. Maybe have it take place in a different country. Try to broaden that up more, because every single one of these movies outside of Skull Island seem to take place in America. Let's go, to like Australia. Let's get some in Australia or in London or anywhere. Plus, honestly, I think the alien invasion thing, even though it would be, just kind of out there, that sounds more intriguing to me and more fun. Where would you go from King Kong or Godzilla versus Kong to, what else, I guess? I would rather them go to an alien invasion.
I found one that I recognize. There is a character called Gigan.
Yeah, do him. Why not?
And I can share. Actually, I've just remembered I can share screens, so I can. Okay. I'll share the Wikipedia page along with the character.
I have no idea who that is, for sure. I understand financially doing some of these other monsters isn't as.
That's Gigan.
Yeah, do him. He looks cool. I mean, kind of looks like Godzilla, but yeah, do him.
Actually, fuck it. I'll just stay on the tab. I'll just bounce around some characters. So that's Gigan. This is Anguirus.
Sure. Yeah, let's do that. I mean, look, they won't make us much money, but screw it.
Did they do Rodan? Was he in King of the Monsters? Yeah, I think he was.
Do Rodan. Give him his own prequel.
Ibira. That's a crab-looking motherfucker right there.
Australia. There you go. That takes place in Australia. I mean, it's believable.
Maybe. Yeah. Manila.
I don't know who that is, but that thing
looks like Barney the dinosaur. Jesus.
If it got the shit beat out of it. Yeah, let's do him. Let's give him a movie. HBO Max.
What else we got? We got Gorosaurus. Oh, that doesn't have a picture.
Don't even know what it looks like, but there.
Manda. That's Snake. Yeah. You haven't seen Manda yet.
I have not.
God, fans of this stuff are gonna hate us for this.
Super.
What else? There's Megalon. Yeah. That looks like a Power Rangers villain. I mean, that literally looks like a jet jaguar. Oh Lord.
It's not a jaguar or a jet.
I don't. Sure. That actually is a Power Rangers villain. I'm pretty sure I saw that in the show once.
That is Donald Trump's long lost son.
So there's that guy, King Caesar. Let's see that thing. Seriously, furry. What is up with these costumes? No wonder they film Power Rangers over here. Good God, they got all these costumes.
Hey, Rome.
Yeah. So any of these guys, you're saying you'd rather do something different besides going back to home.
I mean, they would never. Godzilla. Yeah, Baby Godzilla. Give me Baby Godzilla. Give me Baby Godzilla.
That's a thing.
I want Baby Godzilla. Yeah.
Does Baby Godzilla have boobies?
I don't know. I remember watching. He had like Godzilla and little tiny Godzilla and kind of going together. Yeah.
Out of the American films. I mean, so these count as Oh no, Zilla. Do you want to see Zilla?
Yeah,
show
Zilla.
up
Yeah,
again?
I mean that's the return. Bring back the cast of the '98 Godzilla.
Oh, that's my favorite like thing about Godzilla is
Yeah.
that movie was such a shame to them that they named it a different like it's now its own character with appearances in Toho, but it's like they had to make it a separate entity.
Oh
That's
yeah.
incredible. Watch us get flagged for that.
Yeah, but look, give me something different. You know what I mean? Give me a movie that's not Godzilla and King Kong. Do a different monster. It won't make as much money. Do small budget. You don't have to go all out like you did with these movies. You can make it literally small budget. Just put all the money to the monster and then just get a bunch of unknown actors like me. Get us in the movie. You could pay us like $100,000 and then there you go.
Shit, I'll take that payday.
Yeah, I'll take it. Do it. Look, just give me something different because who knows? Maybe, enough people will like it to the point to where we can have a sequel, put a little more money into it, and then, it'll be big. You can have new monsters.
Hey guys, sorry about that. I would take it.
Oh, you're good.
You're good. You're good. Before we move on, I'm not going to play the last video, but I will squeeze one of the topics in briefly because I think it's worth mentioning.
What were we talking about before?
I'll give you a quick thing. Not in the Heights. I'll give you. So we were talking about last week. We discussed the rumor that the basically Adam Wingard could be returning to the MonsterVerse should they continue, but it'll be in the form of Son of Kong, a sequel to Kong Skull Island. And the question that we had, because we had a brief discussion last week, and we've kind of got into it for the last 10 minutes or so, is should that be the next project in the MonsterVerse, or should it be something else?
I mean, have you not been a big fan of some of the MonsterVerse movies? Like, I thought Kong vs. Godzilla was fine. I think the action sequence was the best part of the movie. And I like Kong Skull Island a lot. Was a big fan of the Pacific Godzilla? I'm not sure. Like, it's just like, if they just work on the human element and make that a lot better movie than a bit more fall. I only care about the action sequences. I don't give a crap about any of the human.
I guess.
Yeah.
And I actually, that's one of the things that I actually praised about Godzilla vs. Kong. I thought that might be the best work they've done on the humans because it wasn't this mega large, expansive cast full of all these characters that are there for quips and jokes. And like, as much as I enjoyed Kong Skull Island, why did we need on top of Hiddleston and Larson and Goodman and Jackson and Kebble's character and John C. Reilly showing up? Why did we need a squad of like 5 soldiers? And we had Corey Hawkins' character and the Asian scientist. And it's like, it just kept going and going, right? Whereas with this, it's like, look, you have 2 sexy characters. You got Ludwig, Rebecca Hall, the kid, and chick from Baby Driver.
Yeah.
And then you got
And
then you got Millie Bobby Brown, you have Julian Dennison, Brian Tyree Henry, and then of her dad, and then you have the villains, right? You have Demian Bashir, and you have Ren Sarizawa, which I think is, or his kid, which I think is the biggest wasted opportunity of that film, and I bet you that's somewhere in the cut footage. You do not just make your villain the kid of the guy who got killed by Godzilla and just make that a throw-out line.
Right.
Like, and they just say his name like it's a throwaway line, but Serizawa, and they've said this in like sense, he's the kid of Ken Watanabe's character from the Godzilla films. Like, and there's a reason that guy is controlling your Mecha Godzilla, and I wish we'd gotten into that a bit more because that might have been interesting.
And easily the best thing about the human was buying Tyree Henry and the kid who had a connection to Kong.
Yeah, I thought all of it was fine. Like, I like that it wasn't expansive. I like that they weren't trying to be funny when they didn't have to be funny. I like that it was just, look, we are here solely because we don't need our own stories, you know. The only time we got interaction between Billy Bobby Brown and Kyle Chandler was when it centered around Godzilla, not because we needed daddy-daughter drama, right? It was all around Godzilla. It was, we're here to put, so much so that, like, what's it? Oh my God, what's his name? Lance. Lance something. He was in the John Wick films as Charon. I forget his name, but
yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Lance Reddick.
Yeah.
Right. So much so that like, and they said this again after the fact of the film. His character is the head of Monarch in this movie, but they looked at it and went, his scenes really don't have any connection to either of our direct heroes or villains. So we'll still pay you. We'll still give you lead billing for some reason. We're going to chop you out of most of this film. You get 2 scenes that are 5 seconds apiece. And it's like, that's incredible that they're willing to make those choices now, because they didn't seem like they were previously.
I kind of think like they didn't give a much after that. He barely in a movie that much.
Who?
Godzilla, like he went for a couple of minutes and he disappeared for like a good 40 minutes in the movie until they on the ship heading into
because and I think this is part of it, you had 2 films with him. So you have to kind of set it, you understand Godzilla's position at this point in the battle. You have to set up Kong's position, and also remember Godzilla is technically a part of the twist, right? The reveal is that his attacks are because of Mechagodzilla. So you can't just have him showing up and blowing shit up randomly, because it doesn't have anything to do with Apex. It has nothing to do with Mechagodzilla. And you can't have him show up on, his only 2 things that he's drawn to are Mechagodzilla and Kong because of his dominance. So unfortunately, until you get Kong to the surface or you get Mechagodzilla to show up, there's actually no real reason for Godzilla to be there. So I agree with you that, like, wow, that's weird. A title character's not here for so long. But when I thought about it, it did make sense, because they straight up say his only draw to this whole event is these 2 characters and his quest for dominance. So if they're not actively on the Earth doing something, then there's no need for him to show up.
Right.
And I get that they retcon everything King Kong related, like, Skull Island now gone, so we never get the events of King Kong to happen. So.
What do you mean? Like, Skull Island canon?
No, they say that in Godzilla vs. Kong, Skull Island is gone, that way he's now on a different island.
No, they're on Skull Island.
Oh, I forgot that.
Yeah, so they're on Skull Island, but at some point between now and, well, they say they've been there for a number of years. So at some point between the 70s and maybe like 10 years prior, 5 years prior, this major raging storm hit Skull Island, and that's why Monarch put up the thing around. So he's still on Skull Island. It's just he's encapsulated to keep him safe from the storm.
Yeah. And again, and I kind of don't mind they don't have to be made King Kong. They should just do Kong with a different story.
Yeah. I like it. Like, I honestly, if you want to see King Kong, there's 3 versions of it. Like, I'm cool with that. You can take your pick. You can take the really, really old one. You can take the middling Jeff Bridges one, or you can take the way too long Peter Jackson one with the dinosaurs.
And they took ideas from that because they had him being last at his kind. Like, the Jackson one.
So it's like, I think that you can handle that any way that you like. You can approach it however you want. But yeah, so here's what I'll do before we wrap up the show. I'm gonna play the video, but I'm gonna read off kind of one story that was the last story that we had as a part of this video, and the other parts of it. We already talked about one of them. Morbius moved its date; it moved 1 week. The other two stories, I won't comment on them. Just quick. Noah Centineo exits the He-Man film, throwing that back into disarray again. Essentially, what it boils down to is he didn't like that apparently Sony is planning on selling the film to Netflix, and he apparently was asked to go back into, they had him on this insane fitness regimen and personal training program that he had to stop because of COVID. A year later, he's currently filming Black Adam, and Black Adam were perfectly fine with the amount of shredded he is now. I guess the He-Man producers wanted him back on that intense workout, and he was just kind of like, well, I'm doing this now, and they're fine, so I don't want to do this anymore. I'm good. And he walked away. The other one is we finally got confirmation that, real confirmation that a sequel to the 2016 horror film Don't Breathe exists. It's set for release in August of this year, and it will focus on Stephen Lang returning as the blind man. He's living alone in a forest, raising a young girl who he rescued from near death, and attempting to kind of live a quiet life and atone for his, as I wrote in the script, his turkey-basted related sins from the previous film. When a gang shows up and kidnaps the girl, and I don't know if he's going to be like the hero in this or what they're going for, but it's set to come out August 13th this year, so we'll find out very soon. The other bit of this video, though, that I wanted to bring up, and I dropped it. I originally wasn't going to bring it up because we had a couple of small interviews this week, but the lead producer of the Oscars last week, Steven Soderbergh, did finally address everything that had to go on with the Oscars, specifically in relation to the category switches. I do feel like that's a worthy topic of bringing up, and if I let it go one more week, then there's no point. So I am going to bring it up here. Basically, to kind of boil it down quickly to what he said, apparently the switch of categories was a decision that they made not in April or March, but in early January. And it was one of the switches that he made as a part of his attempt to switch up a number of things at the Oscars to make it feel more cinematic, right? And we saw a lot of those throughout the night. The sequences from the films were cut down or cut out entirely. The camera angles and the way they were moving the camera was very different. The songs were moved to the pre-show. We had less scripted funny segments and more just off-the-cuff segments like Lil Rel and Glenn Close twerking. And apparently this switch was meant to be one of those because in his estimation, actors give better speeches than producers. So he felt ending the night with two powerful speeches from actors potentially could be a great way to end things. And it had nothing, he said then straight up, if Chadwick had won, it obviously would have made for a great moment for his widow and his brother to have a chance on stage for him. But the decision had nothing to do with Chadwick nor any other particular actor. It was just his thought process going into it. And obviously he did admit that it did not work out the way he intended with Frances McDormand's real abrupt speech and then Anthony Hopkins not being present. So he admitted it backfired horribly, but I took a gamble and I stand by it. And he apologized to anyone he may have upset with the Chadwick thing because he said, I do understand why the internet went that direction when they realized what was happening because it's not something we announced. It was something that happened off the cuff. And he's like, I get it. I get why people's minds went there, but I didn't mean to hurt anybody because of it. And again, we kind of talked about this earlier, half jokingly, of do we believe them? Are they bluffing? I believe them. Like, listen, and I said it in the video. I'm one of the people who assumed like this had to be an off-the-cuff decision they made. Yeah. You know what? His justification actually makes sense. More often than not, especially with Best Actor and Best Actress, is where you get the long, sprawling, inspirational speeches. The first one that actually comes to my mind is when McConaughey won, and he did the thing where he's like, my hero from now is me 10 years from now, because I'll never live up to that, but I have something to strive for, right? You get these big moments, like just in the last few years, Leo talking about conservation and whatever else, right? So I get what he was shooting for. I actually do see the vision behind it. Right. It's unfortunate it went so south. Like, he was envisioning an 100% success, and it went at fucking 10%. And I only give it 10 because at least Frances McDormand got up on stage. She got off just quick, but at least she got up. It's a moment that didn't work out, but just like everything else with this Oscars, it was clearly someone who is, and you can see it in his films, he is an auteur type of filmmaker who is taking calculated risks in an attempt to make the Oscars more interesting. Some worked out. I thought Glenn Close twerking was funny. Like, I'm okay if they do like that in the future. Hand someone who is naturally funny, has charisma the mic, let them go off for a few minutes to kill some time. I'm cool with that. The songs, I'd put them back in the ceremony. I think it does break it up a bit more. I get the argument for that. It becomes a concert for a few minutes and distracts from the movies, but I think it does break up the monotony that can become the show. But I see the calculation behind the risk. I do, in retrospect, understand why he did it. And he did admit, like, it was a thought that entered the producers' heads of, wow, if Chadwick won, that would be a great moment. But it's not like that was the moment they turned around and went, oh, let's change it. It was decided on months ahead of time. And he said, no matter what happened in the nominations, it was something they were. So, B or Diaz, before we close out the show in its entirety, I'll go to you for your thoughts on that.
So I get what they were trying to do and whatnot as far as like the whole Chadwick thing. I thought, okay, yeah, in theory it might sound like a good thing. I think now they know, even if we're in a situation like this again, which hopefully, that's not the case.
Right.
No, this is not how you do it. Like I said, it has nothing to do with whether I thought one person was better than the other. Ending it off with, Joaquin Phoenix being like, okay, we're going to accept the award on behalf. Yeah. Okay. And then walk away.
Right.
Yeah. It marks the end of last year. Like, it's a perfect end for last year as far as movies and whatnot. But, yeah, that's not how you do it. Like, I was, of course, happy with the Anthony Hopkins win. But still, even if he would have, lost and Chadwick would have won, I would have, done it before Best Picture. So,
right. So, but do you? And he did say at the end of it, like he said, look, like I took the risk.
Yeah.
Which I think that this is the thing that needs to be stressed from it. Chadwick had nothing to do with it. That was an internet assumption that was ran with. Now we know the truth. He had nothing to do with it, which I think is good. I think it's honestly good. And again, I do believe Soderbergh because he is a Hollywood person that has gotten in trouble for speaking very frank about things in the past.
Right.
I mean, so much so that like I think once he straight up admitted that one of his films, Haywire, happened because he was courted for James Bond, and he was just like, ah, fuck it, I'm gonna take the pitch I gave to Bond and make my own movie out of it. Like he just straight, like that's his whole thing. He doesn't care. He's very blunt. So yeah, I believe him.
Me too.
And he even said it at the end, like he said, look, after what happened this year, he's like, I don't think I'll be brought back. I really don't.
Right.
He says, I think next year you'll see a very traditional show. And he said, I just thank the Oscars for having the trust in me, for allowing me to do the attempt that I wanted to do. And kind of like, I hope I entertained someone out there. Which like, at points I thought he actually made some interesting choices. I love the camera movement stuff. I was a fan of that at points. Like, it's unique. At least it's uniquely looking. It's not like every award show is shot the same. So I do like the unique perspective. But I think some things do need to remain tradition. I understand his reasoning for doing it. Let's not fuck with it again, though. Let's just leave it as is. Diaz, final thoughts on it before we close out.
I mean, I love Soderbergh. I love watching the movie. I think when he tried to do it interesting, it failed miserably in a lot of areas, and I saw some of the things did work well, like the people being allowed to speak to each other, like, get a compliment. I saw a really nice, touching idea. Like, they could do more time, talk about the nominees, rather than have some random person go up and do it. I thought I posted some before the Oscars because sometimes some feel like filtered that you want to treat them because either they are good or they're really going to listen to. And yeah, they didn't even mess up. I mean, I like the Oscars. Much as I about Cary did deserve when I would have rather they ended it on an Land when the best picture in that speech, because that would have been a great speech to end the night on.
Right, and again, I do agree with his logic. On a historical sense, actors' speeches are much more memorable than a producer's speech, right? Again, it just so happened that this year you got a really great Best Picture speech, whatever Frances McDormand was doing for Best Actress, and then Anthony Hopkins winning, right? So it's just if this had happened, like for example, the year that Moonlight won, you had that fuck up, and then you had two great, because I think that was the year Leo won as well. You had two great actors' speeches to follow it up afterwards. Then I think you really take the pressure off of that Best Picture moment and end on less of a what the fuck moment and more of a great moment. Vice versa, I think the year Green Book won, right? If you flip it that year and let the actors go last, I do think that plays a bit better because, again, Green Book was a very questionable win. If you put something else after it that takes it away a little bit, I don't think you get as much backlash. This just happened to be the year that experiment didn't work out. And sometimes that's just how it is. Some things can look great on paper, but when you test it, something goes wrong, and that's what happens. But with that said, guys, that is going to be the show. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you've watched all the way through, thank you so much to our guests for coming on, Mr. Kevin Poss and Sean Hunter. Thank you to them. We'll be happy to have them back in the future. Mr. Diaz, thank you for coming on. We'll also have you back at some point in the future. Where can the good people find you?
You can find me on Facebook, YouTube, anywhere. I have a couple matches coming up. I'll be posting probably tonight my thoughts on Retro vs. Machine. You're not seen it yet. You check out Netflix. I put more of my thoughts later. But yeah, a lot of good stuff coming out. My movie theater reopening, so I'm going to try to get a lot of reviews out from next week for the biggest film coming out this season.
Awesome. Mr. Beer, where can people find you?
You can find me on this channel, of course. I am on the show, as you can see. So you can find me on After Dark. You can also find me on Cancel the Show with Alan. And then also you can find me, and then from time to time, Jonathan, Jacob, and others on the Inside the Horseshoe podcast channel. Look, we had a pretty big burst lately, and everything. So be awesome if you guys joined us there.
This show exists simply so Beer can plug his show at the end.
Exactly.
I bet you anything.
Exactly.
Guys, thank you so much for tuning in and watching. As always, please check out the endeavors of all of our guests tonight. Also, please check out everything else that we have on the channel every Saturday at 9 p.m. EST-ish. We have After Dark that goes live, talking about all the latest in the movie world. Tomorrow at noon EST, we have the Supernova show going up. All of your geekiest desires will be discussed there with Mr. Colton Roberts at the head. Every Monday at 7 p.m. EST, we have Schmo Talks going up. It will be back. I've teased it, and I'll officially announce it on the page tomorrow, most likely. I've been working on a very secret project that Mr. Beer was involved in. Mr. Poss was actually involved in as well. That's been a fucking nightmare to edit at every step of the way, but I think it's going to turn out great once I get it finished. So that'll be up on Monday at 7 p.m. And in the meantime, while I've been waiting, I was able to record a slew of upcoming episodes, so all of those will be announced as well ahead of time, which will be very exciting. And then on Tuesday afternoons, Mr. Beer and Dr. Spaceman Alan Shepard have canceled this show. God forbid you want to hear politics talk. Please check that out. Because seriously, I think they really have some interesting opinions. Just, keep it friendly. Let's keep it friendly, keep it civil, and discuss like the men and women we are, unless you're a 12-year-old, in which case, why are you watching this? With that said, thank you guys for checking everything out. Please be sure to rate, comment, and subscribe. Stick around, as I said, for all the content that we have. On behalf of everyone here at TMG, our guest tonight, and Mr. Beer, my name is Aaron Knoll. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys next time on After Dark. And once again, ignore the outro because it's outdated.
Bye.